Time you're tuning in the program called What's Going on FlintTalkRadio.com. We are the number one studio here in Genesee County, and we are working really hard here at the studio to maintain that position and build upon it. We have a legacy here at FlintTalkRadio.com. This program has been going on for 7 years, and the studio has been going on longer than that. And we are sending out a message here today and every day that we're not going anywhere anytime soon. And hope you'll stay tuned to the programs here and all of the shows that are put on at the studio, one of which comes on today at 3:30, Sartorius Black History Corner from 3:30 around 4. And I hope you will stay tuned to that program and other programs that we do here. We are, as always, delighted that you are with us this afternoon. And particularly today, this is Veterans Day. And I want to I don't know if we've done this today at the studio. I think this is the first program we've done today. But I want to give a round of applause to those who have served the country in uniform and those that are in uniform right now that have done your duty to the country. And we are going to make sure that the country does its duty to our veterans, even when they have the government shutdowns. I just cannot believe that anything was shut down without, first of all, making sure that all the veteran benefits are being paid and that our military is being taken care of, because they are the first line of defense against any of the adversaries we have on the outside of the nation, and they are growing in numbers every day. And I want to definitely show my respect for the soldiers, those that are in uniform, and those soldiers that are out of uniform who are doing other kinds of work as far as the military protection this country needs in order to maintain the freedoms that we are all vying to maintain against some of the odds, both internal and external. And I want to say that I commend the soldiers. I'm not Ted Cruz, not Ted Cruz, but Tom Cruise. Who made an outlandish comment last week saying that his job, he's an actor in Hollywood that does some of his own stunts, who said his job is more hazardous than that job that's been done by the military personnel of this country. And I think that's an outrageous comment to make, because you're not putting yourself in harm's way where there are people that are trying to kill you. I don't think they're doing that in terms of firing those cap pistols on the set. And for anyone to claim that the job is more hazardous than the job being done by a military, I think that's disrespectful and disingenuous, and it disregards the people that are putting themselves between us and that which is trying to harm us. They're in between that force and the people that they're protecting. I think we have to really acknowledge that, and we have to celebrate every day what they're doing on behalf of this nation. Today is a special day, and a lot of restaurants around the city of Flint, I'm very happy to report, have taken upon themselves to give the veterans a free meal. And I think the actor, I think his name is Cisneros, is that the actor's name?
Gary Sinise.
What's the name?
I think it's Gary Sinise. Gary Sinise, yeah.
Who has rented out all of the Golden Corrals throughout the country, and any veteran today, excuse me, can go into Golden Corral and get a meal free, paid for by this wonderful actor. This is not one of the ones that's saying his job is more hazardous than that of Tom Cruise. And he has paid for meals for veterans all over the United States. I just love to see those persons that will show some respect for those who put themselves on the line every day, and to show some appreciation. I think it's so disrespectful for what happened in Washington, where they had to go in and, as an afterthought, to take out everything else that was in that package where they couldn't agree upon that which would keep the government open. Not that I'm saying the government ever shut down. You can't shut down the government with 1.3 million employers showing up to work every day, and you laid off 800,000 non-essential, these are their words, not mine, non-essential employees of the federal government I didn't see a shutdown. And I certainly take exception when that is being used as excuse not to put in place the particulars that would have safeguard the benefits we owe our veterans and those who are serving in the armed services right now. That's first and foremost what should take place. And the mere fact that it was an afterthought, that tells me a lot about not only who's on first, but it tells me a lot about who's running this government. And as if I didn't have a tidbit of respect for them to start out with, I have even less respect for those persons that would have our veterans and our military as an afterthought, those 800,000 persons that are serving this nation. And I noticed that during this quote-unquote shutdown, they said that there were 400,000 of those 800,000 that were, in fact, part of the non-essential workforce, where in Homeland Security, of the 235,000 persons there, only 1,400 of them were seen as non-essential and were laid off during the so-called shutdown. Somebody can explain that to me later on after the program is over. But I didn't understand that in terms of the numbers of people that are in our military that are looked at as being non-essential. I guess the fire department is not essential until you have a fire. Then you see how essential those persons are. But 50% of them were in fact shut down, were laid off for 16 days during the so-called shutdown. And it was politics as usual being played in Washington. But today we celebrate our veterans. Hope everybody will do something nice for the veterans today. If I see a veteran, I'm going to, if I'm at a restaurant and the restaurant is not picking up the tab and somebody's in uniform, I'm going to pick up the tab. And I don't have a whole lot of, I'm not claiming to be a rich person, but I can do a little bit. Anything I can do to say that I am very appreciative of those persons that are standing in the gap, I have to do a little that I can do. And I'm sure everybody in America feels the same way. Today is your day, veterans, and I want you to enjoy it with your family. I even heard on the way to the studio today to show you what kind of veterans we have and the kind of persons that we have in uniform. I heard on the way to the studio today that there are people now getting ready to get on the plane in Los Angeles, and they're flying to the Philippines because the typhoon hit over there. They're getting ready to go to the Philippines and do some service over there in that devastating typhoon. That really was a hurricane that hit down over there, and they're going over there to serve, even though they're no longer in the military. They said that they want to do some public service, and they're now saying that given the devastation that occurred in that typhoon, that they're going to need even more personnel going over, and some of them have already volunteered for a second tier of veterans going over there to do some service in another part of the world. You just can't say enough about these kinds of people that are the true patriots. And I hope we will have a country that is deserving of the sacrifices that they're making. And that just means we've got to get those persons in Washington to understand that we are in charge here and that they're not the ones running anything. We're the people that's in charge. I think we're gonna make that point very clear the way things are looking in 2014. So veterans, just hold on. We're going to do our part in November of next year. We're going to make sure that we have the country that your sacrifice is worthy of being in the forefront of saving.
Did you hear a few years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, that Denzel Washington was visiting a place that was like they were constructing homes for like returning veterans, some kind of like place that they can actually, especially ones who were injured, and they're building these homes, and he asked how much one of them would cost to build, and they said the general price, and he whipped out his own checkbook and wrote he wrote a check to cover one of those being built.
I think that check, as a matter of fact, was for $250,000.
Yeah, so I mean that's like so there's some good people out there.
Yes, I see. Tom Cruise is a great actor, and I give him a lot of credit for his talent. But I fell out with Tom Cruise when he made that comment. I thought it was so disrespectful for anyone to put acting on the same level. One person on Facebook, and he chastised me for saying I referred to some of the patriots as warriors that were on Facebook. I would say you are a part of the warriors. And this one person that was in the military said that he objected to me using the word warrior with those that were, not in uniform and really in the forefront of the battle, on the battlefront of this nation. I understood what he was talking about, and I told him that I want to apologize for it if he took it the wrong way. I was certainly not putting anything on the same level as those persons that are making these kinds of sacrifices for the nation. I meant it in a very different way. But if he was offended, I want him to know that no offense was intended. And when anyone puts themselves in a Hollywood role on the level of our warriors, our true warriors, those who are standing resolutely against an enemy that is determined both within and without, because some of those persons are here and have been let in because of our ridiculous immigration policies, not because we need immigration reform. We need to have our laws, immigration laws, respected and defended by the federal government, which is determined not to enforce its own laws as far as immigration is concerned. If anybody doubt that, just go and look at what happened to the Arizona Governor Jan Brewer when she tried to enforce not the Arizona's laws, but was trying to enforce the laws of the United States of America. Those laws in the books that we say we believe in because we believe in our sovereignty, those laws are the ones she was trying to enforce. And look at the opposition that she had in terms of trying to enforce the laws of the land. Unconscionable. But we are going to, I'm on Facebook every day writing a post, and I'm trying to build momentum up so that by November 2014, we have a cadre of people in place, each one talk to one, each one bring one to the polls, because we're going to turn some folks out. We're going to, in fact, what I'm going to be calling for, because this Obamacare is an unmitigating disaster for this country. And those persons that stood up claiming the Republicans were shutting the government down, and if they shut it down, I would say they shut it down, but the Republicans didn't shut the government down, the Democrats shut it down. And I don't know how the people could have missed that, other than the fact that I know that the left-wing media is reporting all the wrong information, so they can't get a real feel for what's going on. But when the president was saying directly in the camera and right in front of the media, they couldn't understand what he was talking about and couldn't see what he was saying, that he was not going to negotiate, but that doesn't shut the government down. What shuts the government down are those persons saying that they wanted to stop this unmitigating disaster from occurring, and wanted to keep it from, in fact, devastating the health insurance industry in this country, which was and also the medical industry itself, which is the best in the world, or was the best in the world, but will not be that once they put Obamacare in place, because a lot of things are going to happen as a result of that. But we are going to make sure that this country is worthy of our veterans. And right now, to be honest with you, Washington is not worthy of the sacrifices that are being made in the name of this nation. These people in Washington are, what's the word for it? Pitiful. People are pitiful. And the leadership in Washington is some of the worst in American history. I said on Facebook this morning, because I try to post my articles very early so that we can get maximum readership, because we're going to build a movement here in Flint and throughout the United States. In fact, the momentum is already beginning to build. We're going to work very closely with people like Mark Levine, whose book called The Liberty Amendments is shaking up the United States. And I think that's going to resonate over time, and we are going to do that which Mark Levine is calling for, and which I called for, quite frankly, in February of this year when I was writing on Facebook, the need to use Article 5 of the United States Constitution, which is what Mark Levine's book is based upon, the Liberty Amendments is based upon using Article 5, which is the way you amend the Constitution, which can be amended, quite frankly, in 4 different ways. One of which, well, because you can propose it 2 different ways, you can also amend it. You can also ratify the proposal 2 different ways. So there are really 4 different ways to ratify to amend the Constitution. But only one way has been used, and that is that 2/3 of the members of the House and 2/3 of the members of the Senate will propose an amendment, and then 3/4 of the state legislatures will ratify the amendment. That's been the process that we have used. But you can also have the proposal by 2/3 of the Congress and have 3/4 of the conventions of the states to ratify it as well. And that would be another way in which it can be done, or it can be proposed by 2/3 of the state petitioning the Congress to call a convention. And in the convention, you make a proposal, and then that can be ratified by either the 3/4 of the Congress or 3/4 of the state. I should say 3/4 of the states, or 3/4 of the conventions meeting. So there's a process never been used before. What Mark Levine is advocating is what I mentioned in February. I don't know. I sent him a copy of and asked him to ask him. I also asked Glenn Beck. I sent it to a couple of them, trying to get some national publicity around the need to intervene without resorting to a revolution or bloodshed or anything like that. But there's no question in my mind that we've got to stop Washington. So what I was saying is that we need to do it through the particulars that were left to us by the framers. And what the framers left us was a way in which we can intervene on our own behalf to stop what is happening in Washington by the states taking the initiative. And if 2/3 of the state legislatures, which means 34 of the state legislatures, will petition Congress, to which Congress will have no choice but to convene a convention at the request of 2/3 of the states. So we need 34 states to make the petition. Then the states can send representatives. Each state, that one person was trying to act like they didn't know how many representatives would be sent there, but each state would have however many delegates they send there, they would only have one vote. States would only have one vote on the proposal, and the proposal coming out of the convention will then be sent to the states, so that the states then could look at their whether or not they want to endorse those proposals or not. And then if they ratify the proposals by 3/4 of the state legislatures, then that has to be added to the Constitution, just like the 27 amendments that are in the Constitution right now as amendments have been added. That will be added as well and become part of constitutional fiat in this country. And we have a better idea now of what we need to add in terms of what the framers intended, going back, for example, to Article 1, Section 3, where you have the establishment and election of the senators, which was changed in 1913 with the 17th Amendment, where they began to elect the senators the same way you elect the members of the House, by popular vote, never intended by the framers. We need to go back to what they intended, and we made a big mistake in 1913 when we got away from that by having a popular election of the senators. We have to go back and change that to where the senators are the representatives of the state, which is what the framers gave us, and they understood that we need to have both the people's representatives in the Congress, which is what you have in the House, and you must also have the state's representatives in the Congress, which was what they intended for the Senate, because the federal government is the offspring, the product the still not the stillborn, but the born child of the states. The states created the federal government, and therefore they wanted their representatives up there as a way of overseeing their role in the federal level, and they sent their representatives there in the Congress to pursue their own state interests. And we got away from that in 1913. A lot of what we're facing right now is a result of that, because we really got off the track by changing what the framers had intended. And I hope we will not make the mistake of going after the Electoral College, which some people are now talking about having a straight-up popular vote in the country, because they don't understand that the framers did not intend to have the majority, rule. They didn't intend to have the majority rule in terms of the majority can simply vote itself into doing whatever it felt it wanted to do. That was not the intention of the framers. The framers wanted to have the republic making its decision based upon the constitutional fiat language that's found in the Constitution, so that you make whatever judgments you make it under the rule of law. And that's we got away from understanding that you can have a majority on a number of things. The question is whether or not it's constitutional. I wish Roberts had understood that in terms of his ruling on Obamacare, where he was saying that the court had no right to get involved in what is a political dispute, and that people can certainly determine what it wants to have passed for laws based upon who they elect in office, and that's a matter of going to polls and voting for your leadership, and then they make those political choices. But that's not really the way it works. The way it works is that if the political leadership does things that are unconstitutional, the court's responsibility is, in fact, call them on it. That's what the check and balance system is all about, and the separation of powers. But Roberts dropped the ball on that one, and now we have this abysmal language governing the health care. And if we let this go forward without it being addressed at some point down the road, it's going to actually destroy the best healthcare system the world has ever seen. And we've got to intervene and make sure that does not happen, that we don't have this monstrosity going down the road beyond a certain point. And we're going to turn it around in 2014. We're going to be doing that in the name of our veterans. And all of you out there in the listenership, I want you to join with Mark Devine and others and help Mark Devine, and I'm going to be helping him to bring this result about. But we got some work to do between now and then. We got to, we got to get a handle on those 15 persons that went to the White House last Wednesday. I put their names on my wall on Facebook. They went to the White House because they saw the handwriting on the wall in Virginia. Yes, the Republican candidate Cuccinelli lost, but they saw something else in that election in Virginia that maybe some of you missed, and that was that although Cuccinelli lost, the mere fact he started talking the last 2 weeks of that campaign about Obamacare, those double-digit numbers, which was like he was trailing by 12 points 2 weeks out from the election. And once he started to make Obamacare the issue, that poll closed, and he only lost by 2.5% of the votes that were cast. And I think that McAuliffe had something like 1 million, maybe 9,000, somewhere around there, votes. And Cuccinelli had about 1,005,000 votes. It was very small separation between the two. And people saw that, and then before you knew it, they had an unannounced conference with President Obama in the White House, wanted to meet with him to tell him that this was a political train wreck ready to happen in 2014. Now they're not so sure about their vote, but when they had a chance to slow this train down in October, they refuse to do so, and we're going to hold their feet to the fire, and that's you down there in Louisiana, Landro, and Bajich in Alaska, who was saying, "I chewed the president out. I want him to know Yeah, you chewed him out, and you also one of the 15 persons who cast your vote to make this disaster go forward. And now that you're seeing the political fallout, you want to now jump outside of the box and act like you were one of the ones that was trying to represent your constituents. We got to make you pay for that. And really, let's be honest here, that bill that was passed in 2010, February 21st, 2010, it was passed without a single Republican vote. And let me show you how dirty they were in 2010.
It was passed without a single Republican vote.
Without a single Republican vote.
Somebody tried to say, when we're talking about this, some Democrat was saying, well, the Republicans voted with it. I said, if I recall correctly, there were no Republicans.
There were no Republican votes. And I'll tell you what they did with Michael Brown, who was elected in Massachusetts. They would not even allow him to be sworn in until they passed the bill, because his vote would have been the 41st vote. They needed 60, and they would have been the 41st vote. So they did not allow him to be sworn in until they had done the damage that they wanted to do with Obamacare. He was talking about that yesterday on Chris Wilder's show.
But when it fails, the Democrats will find a way, with the press's assistance, the media's assistance, to blame the Republicans. They already blamed the Republicans for the failure of the Obamacare website.
They sure have. It's amazing how the media has covered the problem in Washington, where the Republicans are getting all the blame for what is really Democratic policies. But don't forget that for 4 years, everything that Obama was doing was Bush's fault. And he had left office on the January the 20th, 2009, and 4 years thereafter, everything that Obama was doing was Bush's fault. So that's par for the course that they would do that.
Yeah,
but the American people are waking up, John.
Well, the thing is, it's good, but I mean, I'm really pessimistic. I don't see how we can reverse this. I mean, yeah, we can stop Obamacare, but all the other stuff in the works that he's got lined up. And the thing is, you get Republicans, and it doesn't guarantee that things are going to be stopped. I'm really, really pessimistic about this country's future.
Yeah, I would be pessimistic if it came down to the Republican Party or the Democratic Party. I mean, I'm not buying what I see here on the front cover of Time Magazine. They're talking about, on the front cover of Time Magazine, they got a picture, a silhouette, that's a silhouette right there, of Chris Christie in New Jersey, and they put on the caption, "The Elephant in the Room," and some were saying that it was really a caricature of Chris Christie. If it had been, that's the mascot of the Republican Party. If they said the whale in the room, I would have taken that a little bit differently.
What I don't understand is, people are telling me, the Republican hardliners are saying, you just want somebody, you don't vote for third party, you're not going to win. We're going to put, Christie's the best bet. I went, so there's no discernible difference between him and a Democrat. You want me to vote because he's got an R after his name. Yet he's basically a fawning sycophant of Obama. I don't see where's the difference.
I'm going to do everything I can, my little 5 cents, to stop anybody even remotely suggesting this man is ready for the next level. But I'm not putting any hope in the Republican Party or the Democratic Party to resolve this problem, because, see, we have to keep in mind something here. Obama ran in 2008, and his whole message was hope and change. Hope you can believe in, change you can believe in. And he got in there, and how much change did you see? He ran, his campaign was predicated upon going to Washington and changing Washington. You're going to have transparency, going to put everything on C-SPAN. We're going to be able to read the bills online before the Congress takes an action on it, before he signs into law. None of that happened. And when he got into power, he's now telling us that it can't happen from inside. Now it's got to happen from outside. And that's because he's on the inside now.
It's like another thing is, too, all the other presidents allowed tours of the White House. This guy stopped them. His excuses being budget constraints. Yeah, but he and his wife are taking millions and millions of dollars of trips across the globe, but,
I don't have any. You know what, politicians, we have got to see. Today I did a post where I mentioned 10 maxims, really 10 witticisms of Ayn Rand, because Ayn Rand did some wonderful things about government. And what I think we need to do here in the United States between now and November, and just continue to do it thereafter, but certainly between now and the election in November of 2014, we got to wake up to the fact that neither party is going to solve the problems that we are facing in Washington, D.C. It's just not going to happen. And because we saw that, if we didn't see anything else, we should have seen that what Roberts did was what Roberts' vote showed. I mean, he went over there and voted with the radicals on the Supreme Court, the anarchists. And when I say the anarchists on the Supreme Court, first and foremost is Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Well, see, I'm gonna have issue. I never have issue with you on anything you've ever said. But I'm an anarchist. Those guys are statists.
Yeah.
So there's a difference.
Yeah.
There's a difference.
Okay.
I'm in our.
And when you say anarchist, you mean that what? You mean what? How do you mean that?
See, I mean, an anarchist wouldn't try to push you into something like Obamacare, and that's what you're referencing. A minarchist, I'm a minarchist, as Murray Rothbard would say. I believe in minimal government. I believe in hedging on the area of being anarchistic, because if you look at the horrors of the world and all the butchery that goes on, it couldn't happen by a handful of individuals doing it. It's got to have the state, the power of the state, the nod and the wink, and the budget of the state to do all those horrific deeds. If it wasn't for the states all over the world, horrific deeds wouldn't have done to other people, because horrific deeds would have been stopped by individuals opposing individuals. So what Obamacare and Roberts did with that vote is on the state side, the statist side.
Yeah, it's certainly statism. I think that what the framers did, and no one has said this before, and I think I'm the first one to make this statement, because I've been looking back at what the framers were dealing with coming out of their Revolutionary War with Great Britain, and I don't think anybody has said that they looked at the options as being twofold. One option was to have a majority rule, where you would have the majority deciding one way or the other what the laws of the land would be, and the other side was to put it in the hands of the elite. In other words, if you look at what we do here in this country, we really are voting for elites. But what the framers did was understand that you have to have representatives in government, and they will be the elite. Now, my view of history is this, and I'm willing to have dialogue on it, because I'm still working it out. But I think I'm right in saying this. But this is some new information that I'm coming up with that no one has written about, and I'm just willing to have conversations about it. But elites have always run the world. Now, they run it in two ways. Elites have run the world either through majority consent or without the majority consent. But that's who's running it. Either the majority endorses it by voting. See, when we go to the polls and vote, we're really not voting for all of us out here voice being listened to, and because the elites are going to be installed, and they have the cover that they are representing you because you voted for them. But what they do when they get in power is that they really vote in their own political interests. What the framers did, because I think they recognize that fact, is that they did everything they could to nail these boards down, chain these guys down, and try to put them, and latest too, there were no latest in it at that time, but the latest two that have now joined that mix and brought the same thing to the table, they try to nail it down so that when they got in there, they'd have no other choice but to, in fact, follow the guidelines that limited what they could and could not do. And the framers had intended to, when I look at the Constitution, I see so many different ways that they tried to limit what they could do, how they would get out of control, limiting the possibility of that by having so many different variables put in place here in the Constitution, so that the chance of that happening would be very remote. Didn't mean it couldn't happen, but it'd be very remote in terms of all the ways in which power was in fact scattered. The check and balance system, the federal system where the states have certain power, the enumeration of powers in Article 1, Section 8, the Amendment 10, which says that anything is not any power not delegated to the federal government nor prohibited by the Constitution to the states, therefore falls within the states or to the people that reside therein. This is what the framers had intended to do. Scatter it, disperse it, check it, balance it, certainly separate it up and down horizontally, where you have the three different branches of government. That power is dispersed there, so that is separated among the legislative branch, the executive branch, and the judicial branch. And then it's also separated vertically, where there be some powers at the federal level, very limited, and enumerated in the 18th clause of Article 1, Section 8. And then having so much power on the federal level, very limited and enumerated and specific, and then the rest of the powers does not delegate it to the federal government. Those powers, by the silence of the Constitution, falls within the domain of the states. Very clear. And that was what was intended. But we got off the track here. No, I don't. So, and what they're doing here is putting Christie on the cover, as if that is something that we in fact should celebrate. What they're really doing, they're not really so much as calling Christie, as some people have suggested, calling him fat. He is fat, but that's not what they're doing here. And on radio last week, somebody was saying that we haven't had a person, a rotund president before, and as if John Adams wasn't rotund. And in fact, John Adams had put some folks in jail for having called him what amounted to your fatness, your great rotunda. And so, but that, when I was talking about people like Grover Cleveland, William McKinley, even to a extent Theodore Roosevelt, they said, well, that's a long time ago. We talk about more modern times and things like that. And I don't think it's going to be really Chris's weight is going to keep him off. I don't think that the party, those that are the real mainstay of the party, are going to buy Chris's nonsense. I don't care if he did get 61% of the vote in New Jersey. People are not going to not going to buy these rhinos coming here running in the Republican Party, but really none but Democrats, which is what they are. I mean, this idea of the rhinos. Not that if they're running as Republicans, it means that we're home free. I'm not endorsing the Republican Party either. Both parties. We are turn. Everybody's in Congress right now. If we really want to get this house in order, everyone in Congress right now has to be turned out, including your representatives, the ones that you like, the ones that you are claiming out there in the listenership, are the one. Because I look at these numbers, and the numbers are that 5% of the people in America say that they think Congress is doing a good job. Well, explain this to me. If only 5% of the people that's in the country believe Congress is doing a good job.
Those are voters in Chicago, right? The dead people, right?
Dead folks. But you know what? A lot of live folks, because what they're saying by those numbers is that, yeah, the Congress is doing a bad job, but not my congressman. My congressman is bringing back the bacon, the pork barrel. I mean, that's what they gave. Look at what they did to, look, John, what they did down in Kentucky to McConnell. They gave McConnell that dam down there they were trying to get finished because he's in trouble in Kentucky. The Tea Party is going after him. So what the Democrats did to get McConnell to stand down was to give him that money, which he claims is not a bribe, but they were paying him off for his verdict to stand down the Tea Party, Ted Cruz and of Texas, Tim Wise of Utah, not Tim Wise of Utah, but Mike Lee of Utah. I mean, those persons that were standing resolutely, Kentucky Rand Paul, they were doing everything they could to stand these persons down. And Marco Rubio was standing up fairly well after having disappointed the whole world of Republicans, the standard bearers in the party with his immigration nonsense. But we were very proud to see him standing up resolutely on this matter. And so they gave McConnell a backroom deal, and look what happened. Look what he did. And we're going to be going. So we're going to be going after some folks here. But we have to be. But we have got to be smart in how we do that. We got to defeat the Republicans in the primary, because until we get those Democrats, we cannot go back to 2008 and give the Democrats the two houses of Congress and the presidency, not what they did when they had it in 2009. And you see what we did in 2010. We went up there and got one of those houses back from them, because we saw what that was going to meant out to the country. So we can't go back there. So the way we're going to challenge the Republican Party until we get these Democrats out of there, because every Democrat should be defeated. I mean, we got to organize against every last one of them. Because it's hard to even imagine that someone would come between a person and his own health, and a bureaucrat will tell a person that they know best who your practitioner should be.
Well, Obama told a cancer patient, take the painkiller. That's all he said. I mean, it's like brilliant. I mean, it's wonderful how amazing, wide read, and how well educated Obama is. He can prescribe medicine now.
Yeah.
I don't see anywhere in his background he had medical training.
Yeah, I don't even see anything in his background that says that he is all that they're giving him credit for. This man has not shown any.
You're supposed to be walking on water, isn't he? I mean, according to
that's what they claim. This is this man is the new Messiah, and all of these things they said. I mean, 57 states. How many persons believe there are 57 states out there? If you believe there are 50 states, not 57 states, well, you're smarter than the president on just that matter. And how many of you believe that in a democracy, in a Republican form of government, you should have a president, not the king, not the chancellor, not Stalin, saying something like this to us, that if you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor. If you like your health care, if you like your health care carrier, you can keep those. I mean, what is this conversation about? I have a car I drove to the studio today. Can I keep that also, or should I have the dear leader tell me that I can keep that which I purchased with my own money?
Well, they'll weigh in on that. I mean, and that's like, people say, as somebody who are supporters of Obama, he didn't say that. Well, he misspoke himself. I said he blatantly said it several occasions.
34 times. I've counted.
So how far? What can you say about? I mean, I can have the expression called a GD liar, and that's what he is. I don't want to go into GD means.
There is no way that you can say the president of the United States. I was watching him amend a statement he made repeatedly up until 2010. It was saying it really when he signed into law, by the way, 2 days after it had been passed by the Democrats in the Senate and Democrats in the House. The Senate then to the president, and then 2 days later he signed it on the 23rd of February of 2010. But this president said from that point, before it's passed, as a matter of fact, and then all the way up to the present time, up until around a week and a half ago, when the president finally was being interviewed, and this one person, first name is Todd. I can't think of his last. It might be his last name. I don't keep up with these liberal newsmen. But he interviewed the president and almost begged the president to say he would apologize, because he was hurting their credibility. And he asked the president if he would like to apologize to the American people for being misspoken. 34 times the president was in fact misspoken. The president lied. He knew that the White House knew that by their own tally, some 93 million Americans were going to lose the health care that they had, that they were not going to be able to choose their doctor, and they were not going to be able to, in fact, choose their own insurance. And then when the insurance company, I don't know if you've seen, John, have you seen the list of things that they insure, that they require the insurance companies to insure?
Things that the federal government,
They've
they
dictated.
wouldn't cover. They wouldn't cover that.
10 things.
Right.
Whether you need them or not. Let's say that you have a gay couple. Since we have the 15th or the 16th state now, I think it's the 16th state, they just now ratified same-sex marriage. I think that was New Jersey, or it was Illinois.
Illinois. I think it was Illinois.
Illinois.
Yeah.
Now we have 16 states that have declared same-sex marriage to be legitimate, legal, sanctioned by law. Although your relationships, whatever relationship you choose, is legitimate because you chose it, I have some question with whether or not it is marriage only because we have no role to engage in what a person chooses for their personal relationship. But the reason why we define marriage and why society gets involved in that is because in marriage, we get something out of it. We get soldiers, we get taxpayers and things like that. So we have a vested interest in the marriage because of the procreation aspect. If that were not the case, we wouldn't have any role to define that either. But that's why that takes place, in case you didn't know. And we should not get involved in relationships between individuals, but to define it as marriage on the same level as two parties that can procreate, I think we have misunderstood some things in that regard. And it's never in history been defined as other than opposite members of the sex, even if there's multiple members of that group. And that's why that has occurred in the way that it is. But anyone that wants to choose any relationship that you're into, that is something that you should be able to do, and nobody should have anything to say about it, and nobody should lose any benefits as a result of it. But that's a very different issue than what they're doing here, because these people are confused with Chicago coming on board because of the political correctness that we have in this country. But in Obamacare, if you are having same-sex relationships and you're quote-unquote married by the standards that are being changed right now, then you must still pay insurance that covers maternity costs. And I ask you to ask yourself the question of why is that? 10 things that are itemized that you must pay for whether you need it or not. I mean, maternity. At my age, I can tell you right now that I don't think I'll be having any children.
But yeah, I think it's going to be, we don't want to complain too much. You might give you an allowance on feminine hygiene products, when you file for taxes. So we can all take advantage of that, right?
John, when I try to make some sense out of these politicians, I mean, I try to understand, what happened to them. I mean, because this is not this is we have to return them to normalcy. That's that's Hardin's word in 1920. We return to normalcy, a term he created. We got to return these politicians to normalcy.
You know what might be the problem in a democratic republic? We have a democratic form of government that we allow election of leadership to represent us. So, I mean, it's it's kind of hedging, and we have a democratic form of that. But maybe what we have, the problem is we have a government that is trying to attempt to please as many people as possible. So when they're just looking for something to respond to, so one group sticks their head up and starts whining, they'll listen to that. But then they also now have to pull the rest of us in to financially back that. So I mean, yeah, I think a woman's got a right to decide if a woman wants to have an abortion, it's legal. I don't like it, but do not tell me I have an obligation to finance that.
Yes, that's exactly the point.
Okay, freedom means that they have a freedom to do that. But now, what about my freedom being forced to support some?
I'm with you 1,000% on that one, John. I wrote today And quoting, I was telling you earlier, I quoted Ayn Rand, and I mentioned 10 witticisms that she had written that I think is germane to our conversation right now about the role of government. But I was writing it in reference to what John Lewis said. This hypocrite down in Georgia, one of the biggest hypocrites in the Congress, and they got him down there some kind of a cunning civil rights figure, and nobody's supposed to be able to criticize him. He up there lying about the march from Selma to Montgomery, acting like he was hit on his head in terms of going from Selma to Montgomery. He went from Selma Church to the Edmund Pettus Bridge, and they turned him around. That was on March 7th, 1965. He'd been lying about it ever since for 48 years. On the 20, when they finally got into Selma, that's a different march, because they went to that bridge one more time, and then the third time they went across the bridge and went to Selma. Nobody was beaten when they went from Selma to Montgomery, and you can just forget. You can get off that right now about what you're saying up there. In fact, you lied as much. You lied as much about that today as you lied about going across the Capitol area, going to vote for Obamacare. And you were one of the ones that lied about the Tea Party members out there that was protesting, saying, kill the bill, and you're going to turn it into them calling you out of your name, which that never happened. And you, Cleaver, and all the rest of those members of the Caucasian caucus, that's Rush Limbaugh's word for them, the Congressional Caucasian Caucus, you stood down when you found out that there was some recordings of that event. In fact, Cleaver, I looked at that. I looked at the film of that. You had a tape recorder in your hand. You had it down where you're gonna pick up the N word, because you just were so convinced that the Tea Party is made up of Klansmen. That's your narrative. And they were gonna call you out of your name, and you're gonna record that. And you had that tape recorder in your hand. You never made it pop. You never went public with it. And you tried to act like they called you the N-word until you found out they had cameras and they had recordings in all four corners of where you and others walked through that group. And not one time, certainly not 15 times, did anyone use what you call the N-word, which I don't mind mentioning the word. But I'll use the N-word on the air here. But that is absolutely ludicrous. And that's what John Lewis claimed. And when O'Reilly invited them to come on the air to verify that, every one of those cowards stood down. But John Lewis was saying this past week, with his moral indignation, as only he can do, that health care is not a privilege. Health care is a right. And then here's this hypocrite has voted to exclude himself from Obamacare, which is one way in which they're going to be paying for the benefits. In other words, what John Lewis was saying with his hypocritical self was it's a right as long as someone else is paying for it. And I said in my post, what you were saying pretty much, John, that I thought slavery ended in this country, where what you earn belongs to someone else. I thought we'd ended that.
Because I'm like so tired of the little civics lesson. Every time I bring it up to, I'm posting it on Facebook, I get some status, some liberal schooling me about, well, we have to have taxes for the roads and we have to have taxes for school. And it's like, okay, I don't think most people who are against taxation are against all taxes. They're against unreasonable taxes going towards things that they find appalling or don't want to be part of. Like, I think you should not be able to send your money to things that you find, to programs you find acceptable according to your belief system. Now, if you want to support military, fine. If you have no issue with the military. If you oppose the military, then it has to have your taxes you're paying, a portion of that, go towards social programs. Mm-hmm. Why are we put in harness for every cockamamie idea these politicians come up with, and we're so willing to accept this harness, this yoke, when these people are the ones working for us and not the other way around?
Yeah, and John, and you're making an excellent point. And it's even more vicious when you consider that they do everything they can to make sure that the person does not have the employment that will allow the person to secure his own health care, which would be at a cost that we could all reasonably afford. You couldn't afford maybe the Cadillac plan, but you don't need the Cadillac plan. You don't need to have maternity cost of insurance added to your bill if you don't have that as an issue, but they're requiring all person to pay for it.
They want you to underwrite somebody else who has been exempted. Now you're going to have that money is going to roll into their account on their account for them to be sitting there. Like the Muslims are exempted from Obamacare because they see insurance as a form of gambling, but yet they're still going to enjoy the benefit of it. So it means there ain't no such thing as a free lunch. Somebody's paying for it.
Somebody's paying for it, and these members of Congress want to be the ones that are giving out the gifts because they can get votes for it, and they want to use our money in order to do it. They want to socialize the cost of the benefit. They want to privatize the benefit, which goes to them as politicians. But if they really were the moralists they claim to be, so concerned about the constituents, what they would do is, in fact, loosen up, get their hands off of the economy, and allow the economy to grow, which they're stifling, by the way, where people could pay for their own health care. But no, they're not going to do that because they don't get a benefit out of that. And you see what they're doing? On the one hand, they are putting Obamacare in place, and then they are killing the economy by making sure that the job growth doesn't take place, so that you can't go out there and secure it for yourself. Because where would they take any credit for that?
Another thing is too, every person who I talked to who opposed Obamacare, some of their concerns, every one of them has been fully manifested. That you're going to be forced off the program if you like it, if you're off the system you're paying into now. And also they've already talked. Somebody said, actually, one of the Democrats actually said, "Hey, if you don't like it, we'll allow you to have access to medical care." That's one of the things that people are saying. It's going to be politically motivated. If they don't like your political views, SOL, you're not going to get to go to the hospital. So, I mean, every one of these fears that people voiced being fully manifested right out of the gate.
And what are the implications of them taking more money out of the Medicare? You've seen this going on last week, where they already taken $500 billion out of Medicare. Now they're talking about taking additional monies out of Medicare. So what does that tell you? It means that we're going to have death penalties in the United States. They are going to rob Peter to pay Paul, and Peter, in this case here, are the elderly, the ones who are using 85% of the health care. Only 15% is used by the people that are not elderly in this country, and most of us were using it in the latter part of our lives, and that's why they had why the Obamacare is dependent upon getting young people involved, and they want them to pay for it and don't need it, where you can pay for those other persons. And that's not going to happen, because what young people are doing right now is saying that they are not going to be paying for something that they don't need, and these 10 things they have in there, you can forget all of that. They're not going to do it. But it's not going to work out. But the idea was to, in fact, have the government doing it, have the politicians delivering these health care services, so that the benefit goes not to the businessman, which is where it really should go, because he's the one paying salaries, and then it allows you to pay for it. But they don't want to give him the credit. They want to stifle him, and then they want to have the public then depend upon government, so they can, in fact, give the benefit. Just ask yourself this question. Do any of you out there have the right to go, because you want health care, to go and put a gun under somebody's nose and take their money from them and say, look, I need health care, and I'm going to take the money I need in order to pay for it? Can you do that? No, you can't do it, can you? And if you cannot do that, then you can't hire, constitutionally or legally, someone to do that in your name. We're going to honor our veterans today, and we're going to honor our veterans in 2014 in particular, because we're going to give them the representatives that they deserve. And we don't have them yet, but we're not going to stop moving until we get what we deserve, and that is having a whole new Congress over time. But you Democrats out there, we're coming after you in 2014. Get ready for it. Until next time, we want you to, despite all the things going on, want you to follow your dream. Because if you don't follow your dream, you will never know what's on the other side of the rainbow.